I'm Ed Parker. I'm the lead for Agile and Business Change for Wavestone in the UK. For the last 20 years, I've worked with organisations across the UK and Ireland to deliver major transformation. I'm passionate about how we can use technology to change behaviours to build more effective and accountable organisations. It's quite clear that we are emerging from a period of crisis where, over the last 3 months or so, for most businesses, absolutely everything has changed. The way businesses are dealing with their customers and clients has fundamentally shifted. The tools organisations use to collaborate and interact both within the organisation and with their customers have also changed. The relationship we have with our employers and the way we travel to office has changed. And this means things are profoundly different. It has affected our psychological contract with our work. For most organisations, the pandemic has resulted in a fundamental shift in the way that they interact with their customers. For example, in order to survive, most restaurants have shifted to a takeaway model as an alternative to having to shut down completely. If we look at retailers, it is now the norm to queue to get into a store, which is a complete turnaround from a normal business model for a large organisation like Tesco. And in our own profession of management consulting, the universal adoption of video conferencing technology, to the extent that we now use it, would have been unthinkable in January and has arguably completely shifted the dynamics of our industry. The pandemic has had a drastic impact on the way that many organisations use IT. Typically, for the last 3 or 4 years, businesses and organisations have been fighting to encourage their teams to use collaborative tools. The impact of the pandemic has been to accelerate that adoption in a way that was almost unthinkable, and along with that, completely new ways of working. So it is now the norm to have a video conference. It is the norm to use applications that enable you to share thoughts on screen. And this agile adoption of new technologies to meet a real and urgent requirement has had significant business benefit. There is, however, a downside. Organisations are now going to have to address some of the issues they have with legacy systems. The investment that organisations have had to make in using new technology platforms and using their existing platforms in different ways will leave a positive and lasting legacy. But it also will throw into stark relief the issues that many organisations have with their technical debt. As great as it is that companies have been able to rapidly invest in delivering new solutions to the business, there is only a certain amount of money that can be spent on information technology. And the investment in the new technologies, which has facilitated the ability to continue to trade during the pandemic, will also mean that there is going to be an increased focus on how quickly organisations can shut off and close down their legacy applications. For nearly all of us, the pandemic has changed our psychological contract with our work. Whether we've been furloughed and therefore being paid essentially to stay at home, on the front line dealing with the direct impact of COVID, or we've been fortunate enough to be retained in our normal employment. The change and the psychology around our work has been very, very significant. And we can't yet know the long-term impact of that. Prior to the lockdown, most of us felt that in some way, even if it was implicit, we had to ask permission to work away from the office. Whereas now we're moving to a situation for many organisations where you are needing to ask permission to request desks to work in the office. And this is going to change an awful lot about how we feel about where we need to be when we are working. And it's going to become incredibly important for employers to be able to help their staff understand the value that they can bring by coming to work. The nature of the office space we use will also change. As the nature of physical meetings becomes more important, for many organisations we may well see a return to cubicles or even individual offices. And for most organisations it is likely that there will be a huge value placed on periodic opportunities to bring the whole team together, as the norm becomes that most people work remotely for much more of the time than they have historically. So what this means is that global experts will become much more accessible through the use of teleconferencing. Organisations will be able to recruit from a much wider geographical spread to get the talent that they need to differentiate themselves in the market. That there will be a reluctance to commute, which means employers will have to think about changing their employee value proposition of what it is reasonable to ask employees to do when it comes to travelling to their work. Organisations must now start the process of planning for the next 2 years. Yes, there is a huge level of uncertainty, but that isn't going to go away anytime soon. And organisations need to reflect on the fact that time and again there is a balance to be struck between the timeliness of making big decisions about the future and the quality of those decisions. That's another way of saying that in times of uncertainty, making the wrong decision can, in many cases, be better than making no decision at all, because at least it is giving the organisation the opportunity to move on from the status quo. A practical step we are talking to our clients about is an approach we've developed to enable business leaders to bring together their teams and to think about what that team is going to need to start to do tomorrow. We call this approach Team Tomorrow, and it is about helping managers and their teams work through some of the issues we've highlighted in this interview. The impact on the psychological contract, the changing relationship with your customers and clients, the changing way that you will use physical space and expect to travel. And using a variety of different scenarios help our clients to think about what it is that needs to change over the next 2 to 5 years to make the best of this unprecedented situation.